Hey YouTube, Hella Bella here. I am here today with a really special guest. This is my aunt and also a really good friend. We've known each other for my whole life. I'm 25, so Tony Beth is here today to talk to us a little bit about her diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder. Along with that, she has been diagnosed manic depressive. She has generalized and anxiety disorder, which is GAD, and she also suffers from PTSD. So there is a lot to unpack here today. I think this is going to be more along the lines of a serious video, but we really wanted to make this because we think that it could help someone. So if you are watching and you have questions or something of that nature, you can just put them in the chat. But we're just going to go ahead and get started. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like how long you've struggled with your mental health?
I would say pretty much all of my life without, like, even when I was little, um, as far as like, I've always had the nightmares and not sleeping, the worry that I first was worried somebody's they're gonna come in and kill me at all times. Paranoia, the stomach, when I was little, my stomach hurt all the time. And my mom's just like, oh, she just doesn't want to go to school. And finally
Mhm.
takes me to the doctor, and they're like, she just got a nervous stomach. So when you're, 9 or 10, nervous stomach, they're not going to
Mhm.
diagnose you in the, 80s with Bible, So I just figured I'm a nervous person, and that's how it kind of,
Yeah.
and it
So
progressed really into my late my late, I've been 17, 18 is when it really started to get back.
mhm. So you just like they just kind of didn't even know what anxiety probably was in children at that time either, I'm
No,
guessing.
no, no. And I didn't know. I just thought something was, definitely wrong with me, that I couldn't do things, or my mind didn't work like everyone else's. And it's
Gotcha,
really
gotcha.
just the lonely thing is you just kind of shut down. Even then, I would shut down.
Yeah. Did it get worse as you got older or
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. And
yeah.
some things were triggers for it, obviously, but I mean, like today, like right this minute, I feel okay. And I
Mhm.
feel glad, like, but my mental, I know how my brain works. There's like 1,000 things going on right now in my head.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's ever going to trigger or what's going, I've gotten to where I'm fully prepared for if it hits and it's bad, it might be bad. My end of my day may end in me crying. I don't know. Hope
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um,
So you think it kind of you're manic depressive, so you have like high highs and low lows?
yes, and sometimes it's like a roller coaster, and sometimes the manic part is mania, and sometimes that would last for months with me, and I wouldn't realize what was going on, and then the depression. It's like I can tell when one's going to hit now. Most of the time, I can tell when something's coming. I can't stop it. I mean, it's not that I would definitely don't want it, but I prepare myself for what I need to think I need to be doing at those times
Yeah.
because it's I always did. Sometimes I'd rather been manic than depressed. I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that they like when they're manic because at least they can get stuff done.
Yeah,
You know.
that's what
Yeah,
that's the good, and that's the good feeling. But then you also, when you're manic and that's when you have more things going on in your head, and you're just like,
yeah.
oh
I know that's when people make a lot of their really poor decisions is when
yes,
they're manic.
yeah,
Um, I've heard of people, going making really bad financial decisions, getting married, and then
oh yeah.
realizing later in their depressive episode, oh wow, that was a manic episode.
Um, I don't think if you look at anybody that's like myself, I've been married 4 times. Nobody normal does that in my mind. Like, why? What caused the what? And it's, I mean, I'm not blaming anybody else, or I married them, but
Yeah,
what made me do these? What made,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's the instability, I think, in my mind. Because
Right.
had a really, as far as a childhood, had a really great childhood. We never wanted for anything, or uh,
Hmm.
it just that's what I don't know to explain that is I don't
Yeah. Um,
nothing that I don't think I think it is genetic. I know it runs in my family, our family, But
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think a lot of people realize that it's very closely genetically related because your mom is bipolar. Is she bipolar too as well?
yes,
Okay.
and as far as I know, she's also manic depressant.
Yeah, and she's told me a lot about that. She's told me that, for years she just could not seem to calm down and she was manic a lot. So that was hard for our family to deal with.
Yes.
When did you get your official diagnosis and what led up to that to you being able to finally realize like, okay, this is what I have. Now I can start dealing with it.
The first time I ever got any medication for it was my youngest son, Sam, is going to be 17 this year. And after I had Sam, my gynecologist, you see them for checkup. And she's like, well, do you think maybe you have postpartum depression? And this was in 2003. And I'm like, I don't want to kill my child. I'd like to kill my husband, but I don't want to kill my
Yeah.
child. But
Yeah.
and I wasn't suicidal. I didn't My children have always to me been what saved me from the worst time.
Mhm.
That's like a lot like when if I talk to you about my oldest son, he would like some of the worst times I was depressed. Alan is what saved my life through at that time at 19 years old because I don't
Mhm.
honestly know if I would have survived had I not had Alan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so you had him, how old were you when you had Alan?
I was 19 years old.
Wow, that's really young. So you had a lot of that stuff when you were younger, but when you got older is when you finally got your diagnosis or
Okay, that's not okay. Yeah, she put me on a like not being a psychiatrist, they're gynecologists, so they give you, I think it was Paxil at the time,
Mhm.
several different things, and I would take and then stop because I wasn't feeling any better. So I
Yeah.
went many, many years without being uh, fully diagnosed, and then I think I've been seeing the same doctor for about 13 years,
Mhm.
and Sam is going to be 17. So that's when I officially got the diagnosis from a legit
Yeah.
psychiatrist.
What
And
was what did you think whenever they told you that?
um, I thought about my mom to start with, and I thought, oh my God, I don't want my children to go through
Yeah.
some of the things that we had to as mom got older. Plus, I was getting to the age where she got worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really scary to me. That it's something I don't know if I'm going to be able to control
Mhm.
because. But I watch her now, and she seems to do really well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like I said. There are days when I feel hopeless, but I, like I said, being diagnosed then and actually getting on medication. Which the thing about bipolar medication and things like and like mood stabilizers and antidepressants, I mean, you could be on 7 different medications at a time, and they
Yeah,
have side, side effects. And
that's
and the,
always thrown me because it's almost hard for you to finally figure out the right concoction to actually get everything somewhat stable.
yeah, and I really think right now I'm on some good medication. The combination of like Prozac and Lamictal. I do have to take a benzo, but it's an extended release that you take in the morning to help with to keep you from having headache. I don't sleep very well. I've slept 2 hours since I talked to you yesterday, like 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was manic. I've been manic and I've been really depressed the last couple of weeks, and then I started to get manic in the last 2 days, maybe,
Mhm.
which is like right now. I feel better that
Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't, I don't use this as a crutch. I don't think, because you've known me, and I don't really talk about anything. I mean, I don't talk. I maybe have a couple of people that I will tell if something's really bad with
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and I don't want, it's not something I definitely don't want attention for. I didn't want to, when I got disability, I didn't want to have to tell people in my family or people I knew, oh, get the crazy check.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's,
I remember when you got it and you kind of had that conversation with us. You were like, I don't really know what to tell my parents and your dad, and like it's kind of like there's a huge stigma with it, like just being telling people like I don't go to work anymore because I have a mental health problem and the government's going to pay me monthly, and I don't, like people are mad about it sometimes, like they can't believe that you're, you know, able
And
to get disability.
it wasn't because I was lazy and didn't want to work. I worked since I was 16. The only time I've ever not worked was 4 weeks between uh, one job and then on maternity leave. And then when I went off on sick leave at work, I mean, I feel like I did feel bad to start with that I would get the Medicaid, the disability, because I kind of felt guilty. But I'd also like realized I worked somewhere long enough that I also got a pension. So I feel like I work, and not that I'm not saying deserve it, but
Yeah,
uh,
but you did your time, certainly. You most certainly had plenty of taxes taken
yeah,
out of all your checks.
yeah. And I think sometimes people that are close to me maybe feel like that, like it's, oh, she's not working.
Yeah. I think honestly some of it might stem from just jealousy because other people are like, "Well, I have to work, so everyone should have to work."
And
Certainly, I mean,
I don't know how I worked like I did. Um, I mean, especially in the environment that I did, not only were
yeah,
some
'cause
things
didn't you work around like a lot of men and like get
about
sexually harassed and stuff?
it was about 80% of men in that plant at least. And there were only
Mhm.
like 3 women in my department for the whole 13, 14 years I worked there.
Yeah.
So,
I know you would tell my mom some of the stuff they said to you, like just
and
disgusting stuff.
those were definitely triggers for me from other things that we can discuss freely. I will talk to you about this. And I don't talk about certain things that happen in my life because some of it's embarrassing, even though if I look back and thought things were my fault, so
Mhm.
some things weren't that happened.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
but
there's a lot of blame that people put on themselves for things that are they're not their fault at all. So
I mean,
I mean,
I've definitely made my share of mistakes, and I know that. But hopefully, I've learned from those, and I feel like as I've gotten older, I've learned from those, and then realizing the diagnosis and things. Once I really realized, like I told you, I was sitting in a theater, Silver Linings Playbook. It was 2012, and I had to go back and look one day to realize when I realized this moment.
yeah.
And they were having a discussion in the movie about, and it's about bipolar. I mean, right, that's what it was about. And him and the character discussing what medications they were on. And my sister is sitting beside me in the theater, and I just turned to her and I said, "Oh my God, I have all these medications in my purse right now. I'm crazy."
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I really started trying to read up as much as I could to try to understand, because I was still working at the time.
Mhm.
And it was like I said, I really don't know how. And I didn't miss work. I was not somebody that ever laid out of work. I mean, I worked. That's
Yeah.
one thing, daddy
Oh, yeah.
daddy's
No, I
still
remember you coming, like, home, like, because I would ride the bus home with Alan sometimes, and you would come home covered in, like,
big
black
fat.
soot, yes, from
It's,
work.
and it was a hard job. And I like when I feel for the people that I really loved that worked out there, and that's just still do, because it's not a good environment even for men,
Mhm.
even the crappy ones. It's not a good. It's
Yeah,
a lot.
like,
It's
it's a
hard to go somewhere where you got cussed every day by the people that were your bosses,
yeah, and
and then the
people
sexual harassment from everyone. So
yeah, I mean, and people don't realize that stuff's still going on in plants everywhere, like, this is a very prevalent, so you said you watched the Silver Linings Playbook, which I love that movie. I've watched that movie, so many times, and
I
I
love
love Bradley Cooper.
I love that movie so much that I also realized, like, I have several tattoos. One of mine is on my wrist because, and it's Excelsior, because it was a word in that movie. That was his word to make him feel better. And I thought, if this is on my wrist, if I ever get the urge that I think I'm going to cut myself, I can look at my wrist and be like, that's the silver line. And there's something, there's a reason why I'm still here. I've survived. I'm surviving. It wasn't that you wanted, to me, I would never really like, as far as like suicidal, it wasn't that. I was scared to get up and have to live, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people probably don't understand is you don't necessarily want to die, you just don't want to keep living. I felt that way a lot. Like I don't really welcome death. I'm not like sitting there thinking about it, but there are times when I'm like, yeah, don't really want to do this anymore. Like,
yeah, and I learned to distract myself too a long time ago with things like, yeah, you know, I'm a very humorous person. I do think that I think that's got me through, my sense of humor
yeah,
about
yeah,
things. And
yeah.
uh,
Did you did you have like a group of people that you could talk to who had the diagnosis?
um, when I went to Riverbend, which is psychiatric services for our area, I started going to a day group, and I actually went for it was 5 days a week from 8:45 to 12:45, and I spent it in a group with people who were schizophrenic. They had all sorts of
Mhm,
different, but we were, and then I had an hour of mine was like, and they called it intensive because I was one on one with the therapist too every day, other than being in the group. But
mhm,
when I first started going, um, 2 weeks into it, I mean, I was looking around at these people and I thought they had it way worse than me because I don't by no means have money, but I was not like these people worried about I saw what they would have for breakfast and lunch and like bring
mhm,
saltines and just things about their life. And I thought, I'm so fortunate. I'm not worried about the roof over my head. And I went to my therapist at like 2 weeks in and I'm just squalling and I tell him, oh, I shouldn't be here. That I'm not, these people are worse off. And he's like, just because your situation is different doesn't mean that your feelings are, and it's just as valid. So I think I needed somebody to tell me that. And I continued going there. I stopped from 5 to maybe 3 days a week because I'm a horrible driver. It was a 30-minute drive to go every day.
mhm.
And though a lot of the people that went there, they rode a bus too because they lived right there in that area. So they rode a little van. And if a van would come by here and pick me up, I'd probably still go, you
Mhm.
know. But I don't. It was for me, it was the drive, and like I need to drive less than anybody. So,
Yeah.
and it's just because my mind wanders. I'm not a good driver. Never been a good driver.
Yeah.
And I actually stopped going when I don't know if you remember the wreck I had when I
Mhm.
flipped up the mountain and I flipped that like five front coming from the Riverbend glass. And I was scared to drive, didn't think I'd ever drive again.
Mhm.
I don't know how long it was before I actually drove. It was a couple of months before I would even leave. And so I'm a little better on that, but I'm always expecting the worst. Like
Yeah.
as far as driving, like when I get behind the wheel of a car, every time I know I've got that feeling, well, I might die today. I might die when I'm going to the dollar store
Oh
because
my
I,
gosh.
and
Do
that,
you
that's a panic.
Yeah, it's anxiety. Do you care to touch a little bit because you have a generalized anxiety disorder as well? Do you have medication for that, or is it just sort of a um
Well, yes, the Prozac and stuff like that are all supposed to be, and the Lamictal are like mood stabilizers. And then, of
mhm,
course, the Xanax. And a lot of people don't understand because like I said, there's such a stigma. If you take Xanax, people think, oh, that's a drug addict. It's not a drug. When you take a medicine that the doctor prescribes you and you're not abusing it, you're taking it as needed. And sometimes it's still not enough.
mhm,
But the benzos are probably what is the best thing for a panic attack because I they even that 5 extended release I have he's my doctor gives me an emergency is what we call it, my emergency
mhm,
the instant release because
mhm,
sometimes you have to have that to come out of the panic attack.
mhm.
And it's just really those I would say that medication does help. And
Yeah.
like but there's such a stigma to it. It's like I had a wreck was it 2 years ago,
Mhm,
and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't know, I've wrecked every vehicle I've ever had
mhm,
and totaled most of them. But that day I wrecked my car, and they asked me. well, they knew I wasn't drinking. I mean, I was not drinking. I didn't, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, come down the mountain, and when I wrecked, I mean, it was a pretty bad wreck. I mean, I broke part of my hand and my glasses
Yeah.
were broke on my face. But they asked me about my medication. And so I was honest. I was like, here's my purse. And because I had my Xanax on me, they gave me a DUI. And I spent the night in jail.
That's
And when
crazy.
I went to have to pay all this and fix all this, the court system told me if they wanted to, they could order me that I couldn't take any of my medicine. You can't take a person who's been taking mental illness, like antipsychotics and benzos thing off of med. You can't do that. I would have had to have went into a hospital to uh,
Detox.
because you can die if you stop taking these medications. I mean, they tell you you can have seizures. And
Hmm.
I've had seizures. So um, it was just a really scary time because I've never been in trouble. And then certain people in my family were like, "Oh, you're controlled substance," and I was like, "Yeah, but it's medication that I've been taking." And if they let me work in a plant and operate forklifts and man lifts on the same medication,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I think that I could have drove my vehicle?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So, so just the stigma associated with it, I think Xanax is one of the big ones because you hear all of these like rappers and stuff talking about
yeah,
popping Xanax bars, and you're like, this is not helping the PR for mental
no.
health at all. Certainly not. Do you think that this affects your relationship with your family a lot? Having bipolar disorder, do you feel like it makes things difficult sometimes?
I isolate a lot from family, and I think you probably know that. Not that it's not because I'm not mad at anyone. I'm not. It's just it's already too much in my own head that I'm dealing with at the time. If I'm not around or being, like a certain other person in my family, the after I had a seizure, they come to this house and want to do an intervention, a drug intervention with me and I'm like, I don't. They wanted me to go to a 90-day rehab, and I was like, if I need to be anywhere, I need to be in a mental health facility at this time. I'm not.
Yeah,
So I was like,
yeah.
that really, really, uh, that really shut me up. That really, so it
It
ruined
makes
some of
you
my
closed off from.
it ruined a lot of relationships for me and our family. And whether they know it or not,
Yeah,
it's not that I don't forgive them. It's just like,
yeah.
you
I
didn't
mean,
stop. You didn't stop and talk to me. You just bombarded me. And then if there are certain people I might not have wanted to talk to my family and have told them I have the same person that said something about the controlled substances sat there that day and told me that mental illness wasn't real and I didn't need to take that medication. Bipolar was a fake thing that didn't exist. And
well, yeah. Let's talk about that because there's a lot of people who think that people are making up being depressed, making up having anxiety. Like, I feel like that's actually more common than what we realize. Is people who like older generations being like,
yeah,
oh, you're just having a hard time. Like they don't even want to
and
validate that you have anything.
and I said I don't use it as a crutch, like for sympathy. I don't want. I just shut down a lot. I will shut down, or I say sometimes I'll fake it till I make it. That's my thing. I'll fake it till I make
Yeah,
it. And I think people may take it the wrong way that in the family because I do shut myself off and don't want to talk. I just don't feel like it. It's just
yeah.
like there's sometimes I don't need to do things that are going to make me feel worse. So if I know something's going to make me feel worse, to have a conversation with somebody, why do
Yeah.
it? But
Well, I've certainly never taken it personally, and I feel like that's one thing that people they don't put themselves in your shoes and look at it from your perspective. Like, I mean, it can feel like people are rallying against you when
yes,
when they're talking about you and telling you you need to go to rehab.
yeah,
And
it's like I've never had a drug or alcohol problem. I have a mental illness, but they wanted to tell me it was. Plus, the day I got the DUI, I was not drinking. I'm not gonna say I don't drink. I've had a drink. I definitely don't drink like I did when I was in my 20s or 30s. You know, and
Mhm.
today I'm 43.
Happy birthday,
I,
by the
I
way.
thank you. Um, I like to have an occasional drink, but it's not like, I mean, a lot of people in their 20s and 30s drink for very social. But once you get older, I don't do as many things, and I don't crave alcohol. I wasn't, and like I said, I didn't get a DUI that day because of that. I got it because I was on the legit medication that I'm supposed to take.
Yeah, yeah, and I think even if you are prescribed and you take some of it and then you wreck, they can still prosecute you for
They did.
all of it.
Yeah,
Um,
they did.
so
And they tried to tell me I couldn't take any of those medications. And my doctor had to tell them you can't overrule a diet. Like he basically had to say, yeah, you can tell her she can't drive, but you can't do this. You can't take her off her medications because you could, this might kill her. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, do you like your doctor, don't you? I mean, he
I
seems
love
like
my doctor. He's actually been, I know he's a psychiatrist and not a therapist, but when we go in, like I've been seeing him so long, like I worry, like when he retires, like what am I going to do? Like, because I don't know that anybody's going to understand. And
mhm,
like I said, when I had applied for disability, I only applied for it because our work makes us because they were having to pay,
like
67% of my pay.
mhm,
And so I applied, never even asked the doctor to do anything for me, never, because I wasn't thinking at the time I was going to get disability. And then
mhm,
3 months later, like I said, I got it. And I've known people that have tried for years, which does make me feel bad. But then
mhm.
I also thought, damn, his notes about me must have been, you know, really out, it's like,
Yeah, well, and you had a long record of going to the doctor,
yeah,
so I think that probably helped, your case because it wasn't like you started it out of the blue, "Well, I'm gonna get off
no,
of work for this," so I think that probably helped. Did he explain everything to you whenever when you got your diagnosis? Like, did he
yeah,
have any words of wisdom or anything?
yes, he always has a lot of advice for me.
Mhm,
Um, and he did, and like I said, he told me, you know, I like to read. I love to read, and now so I thought, why not read about something that's going to help me? So I really started digging into like the for myself, like to understand myself more
mhm.
because it was something I knew I was diagnosed with, but there comes a time when you're like, I've got to do something so I don't feel as bad. So or at least prepare myself for when the mania and the depression and all of
Mhm.
that comes. So
Yeah. I feel like you've really grown as a person. I mean, I feel like I was a kid when I knew you when I was younger, but I've sort of watched you grow up and I've watched my mom grow up even though y'all were adults. Like you have phases of your life where like you start becoming more mature, your priorities change. Do you think everything that has, happened has made you a stronger person?
I do. I worried a lot for a lot, and I still do. Like, I've always taken care of the boys. That's one of the reasons why I work. So I also felt kind of like bad about not what I didn't want them to think less of me either.
Mhm.
And like especially Alan, my oldest, we kind of grew up together.
Yes.
So um, they both understand. It's not something like we just bring up every day, but I think they understand the anxiety and then they understand the depression. They understand it because they lived with me.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think that my most important things in my life were to make sure that I took care of them. And
Mhm.
so that, and still is. I mean, I don't care how old they're going to get. That's,
Yeah.
you're, but it, that they've kept me, like I said, Alan, when I was, I don't know, I don't want to get off topic, but I could explain a lot of with the PTSD if,
Yeah.
want
I mean, I'm fine with you talking
um,
about anything. We have about 30 minutes left, so
when, I already, I know, had the, I know, I had the ill, that, before I was ever diagnosed. So, um, But when I was 18, I was raped, and I had an abortion. And, and a lot of what's going on now in the world is why I probably got more political, because and I don't think, I'm not gonna say this is all the only reason you can get one.
Mhm.
It's not something I did easily. It's
Mhm.
something that if I had to go back, I would still do the same thing
Mhm.
because I had to at the time, to me. And but like I said, I go to the health department as an 18-year-old, and the lady in there, they're trying to like automatically sign me up for WIC, and I'm like, I'm not. I was right. I'm not doing this. There,
Oh
and so
my
the
gosh.
lady that worked at the health department told me I was going to go to hell, and that doesn't things like that don't leave your mind. You
Yeah,
know,
it's so
I
inappropriate. Oh my
I,
gosh.
I have like a lot of like with the PTSD. There's a lot of um, mostly minor nightmares, and I'm also prescribed a medicine for like one of mine for the PTSD is actually one that they give people that come back from war, and you don't realize that it's which I don't want to say I've ever compared myself to somebody that said to do that, but you know, my doctor one day was like, I don't know why I haven't thought of this one yet, and it I don't know that it helps because I still have the night. Sometimes they're just crazy, funny dreams. But most of my dreams revolve around things that happened to me.
Mhm.
Then.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was an avid reader before my eyesight started to get really bad, and I can need to do something. But I found myself that even when I wasn't looking for the topics, it was like the books that I would read had those things in it,
Mhm.
and they didn't trigger me and make me feel worse. They made me feel better because I knew even if the story, some of them were fictional, they
Mhm.
it made you feel like, oh, there's somebody else out there that's done this, and
Yeah.
because there's a lot of guilt from the abortion. There's a lot of and that's why I said when I say Alan saved me, I had the abortion in August that year, and by November I was pregnant with Alan, and I chose that. I chose
Mhm.
the wrong person to have this child with, but he saved my life at that time. I think maybe in my head I thought I was going to replace something I had done,
Mhm.
and then it was a constant worry. It's like something bad is going to happen to my children for what I've done. And there's some days I feel really guilty about it because I know I would still go back and have to do the same
Mhm.
thing for me. But it's really emotional, and for me, and
Yeah.
some people it doesn't bother like that. There's some people
Yeah.
that don't, and that's
Yeah.
fine too. But for me, it's
Well,
um,
and were you alone whenever you went and found everything out and had the procedure?
That's another thing. When I found out at the health department that day, I had the best friend since I was 5, and I called her to come because I'm of course hysterical. Oh, after the rape, I didn't want to tell it. All I told the people that knew this person was and I was living with my grandfather at the time. And the day after, I immediately moved back to my daddy's house because I didn't want that person to be able to find me, contact me,
Mhm.
and I think the one time he contacted me was that when that happened was the day after he called, and I didn't. Of course, I didn't know who was calling because I didn't. The caller ID was not at their house at the time, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I think I may have went a little too fast with you," and I just got off the phone as quick as I could. And
Mhm.
to this day, I can't. I don't even say. And people are like, "Why don't you report? Why don't people? Why didn't?" For me, it was embarrassing. It was scary. I didn't want my family to know.
Yeah.
And but I told my best friend, and she at the time, she come and got me, but she tried to talk me out of having the abortion. And she's like, "We'll do this. I'll do this with you. I'll help you raise this baby." And so I knew she didn't want me to have that done. So I didn't ask her to go with me. And
Yeah.
to this day, I've only had one conversation with her about it. And it was a few years ago. And I wanted to just tell her, thank you for being for me that day. And
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I forgot that even happened. And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah,
Okay.
how do you forget one of the most, like, significant moments of your friend's life?
And so that is like, and then there was just another family member that uh I finally had that discussion this year with her at one point, very quickly, because I can't. But
Yeah.
and I was like, do you not think you should have been there at this time in our lives instead of where she was at?
Mhm.
And I was like, did you? Because I'd never told her I'd done that or it happened. And
Mhm.
then she's like, oh, I knew. And I'm like, if you knew, why did you never talk to me or try to help if you saw that there was something mentally wrong? But
Yeah.
to them, it was like, oh, I knew. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
You
so
know,
if
and
something,
that's a great point that you bringing up is that there are all these people who are watching and aware but didn't do anything really, and sort of made you feel alone. I think part of that is as a lot of like stigma around um, sex before marriage, abortion, all Southern culture, religious stuff that you're a bad person or something. So I could totally see why you wouldn't report it and why you wouldn't tell anyone like that. I don't think I would really tell anyone now. Like, it's very deeply personal.
yeah, and like I said, it's like I can't even say that person's name, because it can't come out of my mouth. I don't know. It just I can't say his name, and it's something that is constantly with me. It's constantly with me,
Hmm.
and but it's not something I've talked about with people. Like I do have maybe, like I said, one or two people that when I'm feeling the really really bad depression, which may not even have to do with that. There's
Hmm.
other things that are going on in my life that are not very great, and I can talk to, but I don't want sympathy from people. I don't want,
Yeah.
and I just sometimes you've got to talk to somebody,
Yeah,
and
and to be understood and like acknowledged. I know there's a lot of survivor groups and stuff that they're like,
mhm,
I don't really want you to understand it. I just want you to like validate it and know about this. Like I don't want to have to be ashamed of telling people about this. I didn't do anything wrong. Like something happened to me. Um
and it's like I feel like which people might see this that we are related to, and but I'm at the point now where at 43 years old, and with everything going on in the world, I feel like I should say something.
mhm.
But I also feel like a lot of it'll be behind my back, especially on other sides of it. And they'll say things, and I don't want them to like have to call me and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," blah blah. But I
Yeah.
also I kind of know what their feelings are about
Yeah.
without even ever having the conversations with them.
Yeah,
So
you know people well enough to know what they'll
yeah,
say behind your back, kind of.
yeah,
I think a lot of this is a lot of very old Southern views and people just ignorant. And you're really active politically. Do you think that's because of everything that has happened to you that you are so
yeah.
aware of political issues?
Yes, and it's not just the things that affected me because you start caring about other people in you know I of course I'm a Democrat, but I was raised that way, of course, with my dad. It was you go in there and vote straight Democrat. But I listen now really more to the actual person that's running for an office, and I try to stress to my kids, hey, you even need to like vote for your Senate and the things in between because
Mhm.
these things are going to affect you or your children.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I don't want uh, anybody to go through things that I went through and not be able to get the help and things be banned and uh,
Yeah, I mean
because
it's a very scary time right now. Like it's
yeah,
almost like have you watched The Handmaid's Tale?
yes, yes,
I feel like some of the stuff that's going on right now are straight out of The Handmaid's Tale.
yeah, some of this is like a movie right now. It's like it's not reality almost. And then, like I said, you think, well, things get back to normal. I don't know what normal was, so I don't think that now anything's going to get back to normal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know you mentioned yesterday, you said that having anxiety made you more prepared for, like, coronavirus because you're always worried. So you're like, it's
I've
not as big of
expected,
a deal to you.
I was never the little girl that planned her wedding. I was the one who planned my funeral, and it wasn't like a sad way. Like my funeral songs have been picked out for years. Like,
Yes, you've told me many of them.
yeah, because y'all better play them, you know. Or maybe one day you'll hear it and think of me when I'm gone, and
Yeah.
think, and that to me just like I said, most little girls have their hope chests and wanting to, at least the ones I was around at the time, you
Mhm.
know, their dreams were about their wedding, and mine were just because I've been prepared to die. Not that like I said, it's not being suicidal. Um, it's just there. It's like I'd never expected to live to this age, just
Mhm.
because I figured I'd have a wreck and die or something would happen. I just
Yeah. Is there any other books or anything you would recommend, like stuff that's really helped you? Because you said the Silver Linings Playbook was one that the movie and the book, is really, really good. Is there anything else you can think of?
um, I wish I wrote down the names of the books now, but I've got several. But one that I tried to buy for, actually it helped me, but I tried to buy it for my spouse. It was actually the Bipolar for Dummies book, because if
Yeah.
you don't understand it and you don't believe in it, and of course this person never bothered to look at it, but I dived into it, and
Mhm.
that was one of the things that helped me too, because it breaks it down. I mean, how those books, the how-to book, those for
Yeah.
dummies,
Yeah.
they break things down for you.
Yeah.
And to me, there are certain books, there are movies that make me feel better. And like I said, there was
Mhm.
something that always, like if I wanted a book, and it wouldn't even be like the top, like you wouldn't know this is happening to the character, but it was like it was meant for me to read these things because it happened, and it's like this is
Mhm.
strange, but it was comforting at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And music, I love music because it gets my mind off things.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Do you feel better when you're doing stuff, when you're active?
when I can get up and do things like, yeah, I mean, of course, I feel like even sometimes when the mania, of course, makes me get up and do things,
Mhm.
but the depression, of course, doesn't. But so I have to make myself, and it's hard to describe that part of it
Yeah.
because you don't. It's like the depression. You want to do something to make you feel better, but you really don't know what to do because there's really not a
Yeah.
lot. You just survive sometimes. You just survive.
Yeah. Do you have ever have people who come to you and talk about their mental illness because you're more outspoken about yours?
Well, I haven't until recently even been outspoken, and a lot of mine help with having Twitter because there's a whole world of people that I've related to on that. And then I have some person in my life that I talk to that has the same diagnosis and have the same, and didn't go to a doctor until I said, "Look, I really think you may have this."
Mhm.
And the it's kind of somebody to lean on, and
Mhm.
uh, that understands. And if you have
Mhm.
somebody that you can help take care of, and they help take care of you, just if it's a phone call or
Yeah.
text message, they understand. So I
Yeah.
don't trust, I don't trust a lot of people. I was always very social.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm as social as I was, but I was always very social and outgoing and like to do things, and I still do. I mean, well, when we get out of quarantine, but you
Yeah.
know, there was a lot of times I didn't do things. And my
Mhm.
first year off work was definitely a depressed year. Like I said, I gained 30 pounds, didn't get off the couch,
Mhm.
and that's not good either for you, man. That was,
Yeah. Yeah. Do
uh,
you think you found more of a balance now that you've been off for a couple of years?
yeah, it took a really long time for that. And I still have feel like my dad and my like some of like them not working. So it's like, it's like, oh, she's just getting up and do whatever she wants to do every day.
Yeah.
Well, do they think that somebody wants to get up every day and maybe be depressed or manic? No.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like I should have to get up and tell, text or call everybody in my family and say, okay, well, I'm feeling depressed today or I'm feeling manic. You know,
Yeah.
that's just, I don't do that.
Yeah. It's just part of it's your life. It's not theirs.
Yeah, and I don't care to talk to them about it because I just don't. Because
Yeah.
sometimes it's felt like a joke to them or so.
Yeah. You said you have people who you told someone to go to the doctor. What would you tell people who are struggling but haven't took the leap yet to get help or see a psychiatrist or see a counselor? Like, what do you think? What do you think really pushed you to kind of be like, okay, I need to get some outside help?
Well, right now, the sad thing is some people can't even go get the help they need because of insurance or their income. And that is sad that mental health isn't covered under a lot of things or people don't, like I said, that stigma. But as far as like when I talked to someone and told my friend, like, I think that you have this, and it was basically like wanting them to be able to find a way to self care for themselves too, because
Hmm.
this is a person that doesn't have insurance and can't go to, apply,
Yeah.
had other physical things wrong and couldn't get, and this was somebody like me who worked all their life, and of course, and they've been trying to get disability for 4 years and can't get
Hmm.
it. But the sadder part is that they can't get the psychiatric help or the medicine that they would need.
Yeah, that seems to be a huge problem in our country is just not being able to go to the doctor for anything really. I
Mhm.
know personally I have insurance, and so I'm able to go to therapy, but I think my deductible is like $300. So to go to therapy in January, I'm paying I think $120 a session. So just imagine having to pay that every single time if you wanted to pay for therapy
Mhm.
out of pocket. The average person is not going to have that, or if they do have that money is like for a bill or
Bills, food, it's just so if you find somebody that you think needs what I needed, then you just be there for that person because you trust them to not discuss whatever's going on with other people. Because I'm not going to discuss, would never say this person's, but I'm there, and it's nice to have some. People should maybe be aware of the people in their life that might be struggling. And
Mhm.
I think that it's just like they write it off as you're lazy or that's the way I feel. I feel like a lot of people, and I can honestly say the way I work, when I got hired at that plant when I was pregnant with Sam, and I was working 76 hours a week pregnant because I couldn't, you have a probationary period. And that's the kind of job I had. You get it offered once in your life and probably never again. And
Mhm.
I did it. I worked it, but it was really hard. And there were days like I would go in the bathroom at work and just hold my stomach and say, okay, we just got to make it through the day. And that was another thing with Sam. When I
Mhm.
was pregnant, I almost felt guilty because of how much I loved Alan. And I was like, how am I going to love anybody like I love? And the pregnancy was really hard. It was just a really hard pregnancy for me. And but as soon as he was born, before I saw his face, I heard him cry, and I said out loud, "I know him." And it was weird for me to go back to work and him not be with me.
Yeah.
And
And now you
my
guys are super close. You're super
yeah,
close.
my children and I, we take. I miss my oldest, but natural. Children grow up and they get married and they get so. But I do miss that because they're different children as far as their personalities,
Mhm.
and I do miss having my oldest son around too. And that's
Mhm.
that most parents will probably go through that too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do
Like,
miss having because he was also someone that I could talk to about almost anything.
mhm.
And then with my youngest one, I feel like, man, I don't want to. F this kid up, you know,
Yeah,
and not, you know,
yeah.
just
Well,
I
and
worry.
yeah, and you and Alan sort of grew up together, so you kind of have a different way of relating to him versus relating to Sam. So,
Yeah, it's like we're really close. It's just in a different way, you
mhm.
know. So
um, we have about 10 minutes left. Do you
okay.
have anything that you want to touch on that we haven't already talked about or anything?
Um, uh, I guess a lot of that I'm struggling with right now is probably uh the relationship I'm in now that seems like I have. Of course, my dad. I think my dad thinks because somebody has a job and doesn't beat you, then oh, you should just stay. You know, it's
Yeah.
like because it's not like they. And it's not. I don't hate this person. I love him. I just don't. There's no connection. There's no. If you can't acknowledge that I have mental illness, it's
Mhm.
hard. You can't live in a. I mean, it's hard to live in a house with someone that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that. So I struggle with that a lot because it feels like I've gotten myself into something that I can't get out of.
Yeah. And I mean, I would imagine that's really hard because that wasn't how things were when you first
No,
got married. And certainly not, you didn't know all of this is going to transpire. Um,
yeah, and it's real. That's really hard. That I'm struggling with that a lot, and you know, I don't really expect a lot from him anymore.
mhm.
So, and like I said, this is actually, my home. So I don't wouldn't can't not gonna get up and just leave my home because I don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But it'll that part
Yeah.
is coming. It'll come and it'll pass. And
Yeah. That's really tough though. Do you have, um, do you have tips for people, things you do to help you cope, or anything that you do that makes you feel better? I know a lot of people watching this, this is live, but obviously this will be posted later. And sometimes, people are just looking for answers, looking for something to make me feel better. Is there anything that you do that you think that could, potentially help them or help them cope?
definitely for me, definitely like getting away from reality, like just um, television, because there's so much on there now that you can find that and watch that I relate to. And it's also things that the comedies that I'm gonna, and like I said, I rely on a lot of uh, television, music, and books,
Hmm.
and
So just
just
ways to get outside your own mind, basically.
yeah, and and then there are times that I can't even finish what I'm watching because my mind won't stop. But there are times that it is a good distraction for me.
Hmm.
So
Well, that's cool. Is there any places that you like to go that are like your happy places?
soon as we're out of quarantine, is thrift stores. Thrift stores. I love like telling somebody I paid $3 for this,
What up?
and
$3.
I love that. I love that part of it. And for a while, I was when I was on Facebook, I did the marketplace, and I enjoyed selling things. I'd buy clothes, and then when I got tired of wearing them, sell those, and I'd buy something else that I wanted.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
felt like I wasn't wasting
Well,
things.
that's fun too, and we have that in common because we should go thrifting when quarantine's over.
I know that's like the first thing I want to do. I'm like, oh, I gotta go thrift.
Imagine how many donations have piled up too. Like, oh my gosh.
Um, oh, I know. I was manic this week, so like my closet is extremely clean. That big walk-in one, and
Yeah,
it's like organized, long sleeve, short sleeve, everything's so. And then got rid like, okay, this is all getting donated. It was like one time I bought a dress that I come to your house for something, and it was actually when you had donated to the place, and I had
yeah,
bought it,
yes. You
and
were
I was like,
wearing
this.
it, and I was like, I like that dress a lot. I think it's mine.
And I was like, I should have just went through your closet, I guess.
Yeah,
But
that's funny. I remember
but
that
I
dress. That's
do.
a cute dress.
I enjoy that. And like uh another thing is when you feel really bad, some days you don't want to get up and put your makeup on or fix your hair. And like not just because today was my birthday, but like even this week I felt bad, so it made me feel better to put my makeup on and uh
Yeah, get
it
ready.
just because it even there's nowhere to go. Now I'm not saying they get fully whatever dressed, But,
Mhm.
I feel like, hey, I might have to go to the dollar store or the grocery store or something.
Yeah.
I want to feel, if I look better to myself, I feel better.
Yeah.
And, started exercising a little bit to get my mind off stuff, and
Mhm.
things like that help me cope. And like I said, finding someone, if you can't, people that can't go to the doctor with access, finding someone that understands and is a lifeline. That's definitely, like, people definitely need somebody, because
Mhm.
I don't think it's something that you can really get through alone. It's really hard, and some days you do feel like you're completely alone.
Mhm.
So I would say find somebody that you trust and that cares.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely helpful. There's a lot of people I'm sure who will be undiagnosed for a long time, either from lack of resources of being able to go to the doctor or just the stigma of mental illness. I
Mhm.
think that's the last question I want to ask is like, what do you wish people knew about mental illness stigma, and what do you wish that people thought differently about?
I wish that they thought we weren't. I feel like sometimes they think we're bad people. Like, of course, I'm not. My mental illness aren't I'm going to go shoot up a school or something. Like, that's not my mental illnesses. But I
Yeah.
feel like I wish they understood more. Just, I wish they'd educate themselves. Like,
Yeah.
don't be so ignorant to things. Like,
That
just
you don't
educate.
understand.
Like, you don't have to. They don't have to help me. They don't have to do anything. I'm not. But just understand, because there may be somebody in their life, they may have children that end up with this, and you want to be able to be there for your children.
Yeah. And you certainly don't wanna tell your children that they're going through a rough patch and they'll get over it or something like that. Like, I hear a lot of stupid things said to there's a video actually on YouTube that's like, things not to say to a bipolar person. Is
Mhm.
there anything that people have said to you that you're just like, "Why are you saying this?"
Yeah, I when I get manic and I talk and talk and talk and talk, and it's like, oh, it's like, give me a minute to get in, and it's like, and then I say I'm sorry a lot to people, like, when I don't even have to. I'm like apologetic, like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And but I also am like the same person that'll tell my kid, I love you 100 times a day, because I'm afraid. What if they don't know it? And then they do.
Yeah, yeah,
But, you know, I
yeah,
just wish that people would educate themselves.
right.
And if they had a family member that had cancer or something like that, I'm sure they definitely want them to be able to go to the doctor and be a
Mhm.
support system for them. So people should be a support system for mental illness as well. It's not
Yeah.
fake. It's not made up. I don't use it as a crutch. It's just something that I have, and I have to survive it.
Mhm.
And so I'm 43 today, so I've survived 43
Yeah.
years.
Well, happy birthday, and thank you so much for coming on. I think I'm gonna end it here because this has been a good conversation, but I appreciate you sharing everything. I think that people will get a lot out of this, and I just want to tell you thank you for sharing your story. I love you very much.
You're one of my very favorite people. So
All right. Well, signing off, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
thank thank you. Bye bye.